Okay, welcome to tonight's episode. I'm really pleased to chat to someone who, she won't thank me for saying this, but I've known Meg probably since she was about 5 years old. Not that she'll be able to remember. This is Meg Viggars, who is, I think, current England captain.
Yes, I am.
And superstar pro volleyball player, played in the US for 4 years, was it?
Yes.
And you're in what, I think your third or fourth season pro as well?
My fourth, yes.
Fourth, fantastic. And the reason I've known Meg since that she was that age is because I was playing in a team with her dad, and she, along with her brother and some of the other kids from the other players that time, had to come and suffer being in the sports hall with us.
Yes, I wouldn't say suffer. I enjoyed it. So
You did. Well, it's one thing that's been quite funny because I'm a Port Vale fan, has been seeing Tom Conlon playing so well for the Vale.
Yes.
And obviously he was part of that little crew of youngsters playing in the sports hall as well.
Yeah, I remember before practice we always had to have a game of football just to entertain us all before you started playing volleyball.
Yeah, absolutely. So you started really young, really, in the sport?
Yeah, well, I guess I think my first game, my dad will probably confirm it, I was 10. I went to, I think it was either Butlins or Pontins tournament in Blackpool. Yeah, and that was when I first started. But obviously, like you said, I was always in the gym from a young age, so you just pick it up, don't you, when you're there watching it all the time.
So did you feel like it was like a natural, inevitable thing that was just going to happen?
Not really, because obviously my brother, like you said, he was in the gym and he didn't pick up volleyball, whereas I did. So I guess I got some good genes from my parents and I was really athletic. So whichever sport I think I was going to do, I would have done well at. And thankfully it was volleyball.
Yeah, well, you were a decent footballer as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I was all right.
Come on. You playing for Stoke?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So you were a good footballer. And I think, so I remember all this stuff well, because, I never had the privilege really of being your coach. You've been to a few sessions over time where I've been in charge of the session and been coaching the session. But I was coaching a really strong boys group as you were coming through with your dad as coach in a really strong girls group. And, I had the opportunity to kind of see you developing. But I remember when you were, I think, year 8, year 9, it was kind of like, oh, is Meg going to choose football or is she going to choose volleyball? So
yeah.
Was that a tough decision?
Yeah, it was a big question in my mind, but I think the Olympics helped because I thought maybe I had a better chance of getting into volleyball than football for the Olympics. So I just decided to go down the volleyball route.
No, well, let's jump straight into that then. So I think when you were about, I don't know, 16, 17, something like that, you went off to Australia to play in the Australian Youth Olympic Festival in the beach volleyball.
Yeah, I was actually 14 then.
Oh, were you? Wow, okay, I've got
Yeah.
my ages properly.
I was really young, yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, it was an amazing experience. I mean, one, being Australia, I don't think I'll ever probably go to that country, and luckily I got to do it through the sport I love. And I was with Paige Noun. She also played for Castle for a bit, and we were the youngest by far. We were both 14, and it was just like amazing to see the level of sport and all of the athletes and how much they put into their sport to get to where they are.
Yeah. So did that kind of serve to, I don't know, from what you're saying, it sounds like it inspired you a little bit to see where you could get to if you pushed yourself?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, cool. And then obviously you just mentioned 2012 before as a bit of like a carrot at the end of the journey, or that could be a significant part of your journey. And I mean, you were really young in 2012. What, you were 18?
I was, just turning 18.
Just turning 18, and you were pretty close, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. Well, there was 3 setters going for it, and I was obviously the setter who didn't make it. But like you said, I was really young, and I was just starting my volleyball journey then. So yeah. I understand why.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the 2 who went was Lucy Wicks, wasn't it, and Jo Morgan?
Yeah.
Yeah, so gosh, well, Lucy's the same age as me. We were at uni together. And so she will have been turning 30, so right at the top. You were almost at opposite ends of your career, really, at that time.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, God. Well, how many GB caps did you get in the end? or so
I think
far?
I only played one official GB game.
Okay.
So yeah, not that many.
Who was that? Who was that against?
We played against Switzerland. I think it's also on the, because I was looking at Rue's talk, and I saw that you had my Switzerland first cap on there also. Yeah, so it brought back good memories.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you were very, very close, and without, it's quite a long time ago now, and you are one of the most mature volleyball players, that I know, to be honest. And that doesn't say a lot about the lads, does it? But how do you reflect back on how you felt at that time?
I mean, I remember when I was told I didn't make it, I remember my dad coming and picked me up, and we went to eat somewhere, and we were just eating, and I just broke down in tears, and I was like, I just really wanted to go. And I mean, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, because as we all know, England volleyball has no money anymore. And yeah, I think after that, I kind of questioned, like, what is volleyball now? Like, what do I have to aim for? But because I love the sport so much, I just carried on. I thought, you know what, I want to be better than all those people who went to their games. So
yeah, and I pretty reckon you may well have been now. We'll come on to some. I mean, you're doing some amazing stuff now, Meg, and it at some point in your life you will definitely sit back and reflect and go, wow, that's incredible. But we'll come on to some of those things in your career later on. So we've talked about you going to Pontin's tournament, hitting the heights between Pontin's and Earl's Court in the Olympics, and you were part of a really, really successful, talented, and I think like really close knit group of girls at our club at Newcastle.
Yeah, well, obviously I went to a different school than all of the others in the team, and as soon as I got there, like, they made me feel at home, and that's probably one of the things I love about Newcastle staffs the most, is whenever I go back, I still feel like it's home. And yeah, even now I speak to them a lot when I see them. I love seeing them and knowing what they're doing. But yeah, we were really good, and I was glad, because it probably made me want to do volleyball more, because you love winning, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, well, I took a little flick through the record books, and you're really fortunate because you were in an age group where there was actually briefly a national under-14s championship at 4 versus 4, which, I've always thought it's a real shame that wasn't sustained, actually, because I think 4v4 is a great format, and it enables younger kids to compete quite hard. But you won the national under-14s.
Yep.
And then you won the national under-15s. And then I think you got a silver in the under-16s.
Yeah, we just missed out on that one.
Yeah, and I think, did you get a gold and a silver in the under-18s? Was it 2 golds or 2 silvers?
Yeah, one gold and 1 silver.
Yeah, so that is pretty awesome. And our club has got a long and successful history, but mainly on the boys and men's side, not the girls' side. And you, as I say, you were part of a really good crop. Who were the other players in that group who stand out in your memory?
Charlotte James, definitely.
Yeah.
Jen Bellamy, I said her.
Yeah. Oh yes, you were a hitter, weren't you, in that team?
Yes.
Yeah. Right-handed hitter with left-handed footwork.
Yeah, that's my dad's fault. I'm going to throw him in that one. Yeah, so could have taught me better.
CJ and Jen, and CJ was passer hitter, and she loved killing the ball.
Yeah, she did it so hard for that age, and nobody knew what to do. And yeah, we had a really good team.
Yeah, absolutely, and a team where quite a lot of the girls kind of stayed in the team together all the way through the age groups as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, we fast forward again a bit then. So what club team were you playing for when you were trying to get in the GB squad? Were you at Mallory at that point?
Well, the year before I was still at Staffs.
Yeah.
And then, yes, I had to change because obviously they wanted me to play at the top level I can play at. And I think even you tried to sign me at one point. You asked Volleyball England if I could play for the men's team.
Yeah. And why not? You're taller than most of us.
Yeah. So, but then, yeah, I ended up going to Mallory. I think actually we had a good season in the end. So.
Yeah. And who was was it Jefferson coaching you down there?
Yeah, I'd obviously known Jefferson a while because he coached the England. Well, I guess it was like development team at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked him. Probably one of the best coaches in England, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And very charismatic, very passionate, just a lovely guy, Jeff.
Definitely.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, because I also grew up on the side of a volleyball court because my dad was so involved in the club, similar to you, really. And at that time, it was when your dad was a top player, and the rivalry between Castle and Mallory at those times was so massive that, like, Jeff was one of those people. I was like, oh God. And then, like, you get to know him, and he's just the best guy ever. So.
Yes, I agree with you.
So, you, after the kind of 2012 period, you headed off to the States.
Yes, during the training for the Olympics, I met a girl, came over, Savannah Leaf. She came over from Miami to trial with the England team because she was born in England, but obviously lived in America. And she was telling me how amazing the American system is. And I was just like, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I ended up going there. It was very last minute, but I'm kind of glad it was last minute because I ended up with a really good team. So yeah, I was happy with it.
Yeah. So tell us, where did you go to?
I went to Southern Illinois University, which, if you don't know America very well, it's the very bottom of Chicago State. And yeah, we ended up making history actually there because we were the first team to go to the NCAA tournament, which in America you have your league, and then if you win your league or you get a really good ranking in the nation, and there's 300 teams in the nation and you have to be in like the top 20, you go to the NCAA tournament, which is then they find the best one in the country.
And how many teams go to that tournament?
I think it's 20, maybe a bit more, maybe 30.
Yeah, so you have a big shootout basically, and the top teams then play it out live on TV with thousands of people in the arena.
Yes, America is just amazing. If I could tell anything to any young player in England, is go to America.
Really?
Like the standard is incredible. The facilities are out of this world. Like, you look at Premiership football teams, the facilities they have, well, that's what American schools have. And I didn't even go to one of the top schools, so like they're even better.
Yeah. So at Southern Illinois, how many people did you get watching you playing your home games?
It was a couple thousand. It was a very small gym, but it was still a couple of thousand on the really good games.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? It's just a different world to what we're kind of used to over here. And I know it was a record-breaking team, but you were like a record-breaking athlete on that team as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I think I broke a few records, but obviously I would have liked more. But I was called by my coach, I was called the Swiss Army knife because I could basically do anything he wanted. Like, I set, I hit, I sometimes passed. So yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I did pretty much anything. And then I think not my final year, the year before that, I was one of the best in the country all-round players. So yeah. I was happy to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. I seem to remember you getting some award, like for a triple-double or something like that.
Yeah.
I never worked out what that meant.
It's when you get like 10 kills, 10 blocks, 10 digs.
Got it. So definitely the Swiss Army knife in that case.
Yeah.
Around the job.
Yes,
brilliant. What did playing in the American system then teach you about yourself as an athlete?
Probably just the discipline of training every day to a high standard.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you didn't push, like, there's other people behind you pushing you. Whereas probably in England, like you said, I was probably one of the best in the country, so I had nobody pushing me to get better. Whereas there, like, everybody's pushing you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of my reflections as someone who's watched a lot of the game and, you know, been a reasonable player, better as a coach, probably better as a spectator than both of those other two as well. And one of my observations would always be, I think there's loads of people who are capable of playing at a much higher level, but they're only capable of doing it for like 10 points.
Yes, that's true.
And it's our challenge, I think, with what we're trying to achieve in our club and in English volleyball in general, isn't necessarily the best that people can play. It's what's the standard of the worst that people play, and it's too low and it's too up and down and it varies far too much. So interesting, your reflections on training environment was having to train well every single day.
Yeah, well, I think you've got to train with the best to be the best. So unfortunately, England is not the place to do that.
Yeah. And at the moment, you're playing in France. It's your 3rd season in France, is it?
No, it'll be my 4th season in France.
Season. So what is but it's your 1st season at your current club?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about the level of play in France and the different teams you've played for that's brought you to where you are now.
Well, when I first joined, I went to a team called Evra, which is about 1 hour from Paris. And we had an okay season, but then the club had money troubles and a lot of players left halfway through. So then our season got worse and they ended up being relegated because they didn't have enough money to play for the next season. So then I changed to Saint Raphael, which is in the south of France, probably the best place in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I actually was coached by the women's Italian assistant coach, so an amazing coach. And I loved it. And we ended up winning the French Cup, so it was a good year. And then I stayed again at the same club, but unfortunately the coach left and we had a really young new coach coming through. And we ended up doing okay, mid-table, but then obviously Corona hit, so the league was stopped. And then finally this year I joined Mulhouse, which if the league had carried on, they would have won the league last year. So I think every year I've made a step up, which is good in my opinion. It means I'm getting better and people are finally noticing. I think that's one of the hard things when I went pro. Like, I'm an English volleyball player. Everybody was like, oh, who is this girl? Maybe if you put like I'm Serbian or something next to me, people would have made more interest, but because it was England, like nobody really wanted me. So now I'm glad people are recognizing me.
Well, it's good you've hung on to your American accent a bit as well. So maybe that might help if you just talk to them.
Yeah.
So do you think that's really interesting? So there's a bit of stigma associated to being an English player.
Yeah, well, there's not many of us out there who play pro. I mean, this year there's Grace Carter, who's playing in the French second league, and there's Grace Lizard, who is in East, the same league as us. So there's only 3 of us in the world that are playing. So
carrying the torch. But the team you're in is a interesting team for 2 reasons. You've already mentioned Corona hitting, and in France, the way that's being managed because the level of your team, you're still getting to train, which is great. It's not disrupted your career in the way it might have done for some other people. And you're playing in the Champions League.
Yeah, we fly out actually on Sunday to Bulgaria, where we'll play 3 games in a row. So
great. Who are you playing against then?
We're playing a Bulgarian team. I don't actually know the names.
Don't worry
Bulgarian,
about the names of the team.
Bulgarian, a Polish, and a Turkish team. So
oh, wow, it's quite a tough mix, that.
Yes, it is. It's a tough group, which I mean, it's good. Like I said, I want to be playing against the best people. So
yeah, it's a really interesting performance mindset that everything that you've said, you've been less keen to talk about winning medals and those kind of things, and far more keen to talk about the experiences and the challenge that you've been presented with at different levels. I think it's quite a statement for you as an athlete that you're kind of always striving to improve.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to win medals, but at the end of the day, I want to be the best player that I can be.
Yeah, and I asked you the horrible question, didn't I, before we started recording? Are you getting enough court time?
Yeah, sadly at this club not, but I mean, you train every day and hopefully you'll get the chance at some point.
Yeah, and you said how good the training is. So help everyone understand what you mean by the training is really good.
For example, we played a friendly match against Stuttgart at the beginning of season, and I was on the court and I was like, this is the best volleyball I have ever been a part of. Mm-hmm. It was like just so fast, so powerful. We had setters tricking other players, and it was one of those moments I was just like, wow, this is how good volleyball can be.
Fantastic. And is it, you're a damn good player, and if you're not starting, then the other setter must be really good as well. Is there a friendship or a rivalry or a bit of both? How's that relationship go?
Actually, she's probably one of my closest friends on the team. We spend a lot of time together because obviously we go to do setting reps together all the time. But yeah, she's an American. She played at Stanford, which was one of the best schools in the nation. So, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm that far off her. She's probably got thousands more reps than I have. So that helps her. But I mean, I think I'm right there. So it's just taking my chance when I get it.
And having these 3 games in a row back to back in Bulgaria, you've got a really great chance of some good court time there.
Yes, and I was talking to Kiera Michelle, and she's the only English player who's played Champions League, so I will be the second. So if I do get that chance, I'm gonna love it.
Yeah, it'll be another thing for us to chalk up on the Meg Viggars honours board, won't it?
Yeah, that's true.
I chatted to your dad briefly in the summer about your kind of role in the England team. So, you captained the team last time you played. Clearly, it's quite a young group that the coaches have brought together, and you're like the old lady of the team.
Yeah, it's strange to be the old lady because I was always the youngest. So, but no, we played Luxembourg. I think it was last January, the Novotel tournament, and yeah, I was with loads of young girls. But it was nice to see that there is talent coming through. But it's also, what are we going to do with that talent is one of the questions I have in my head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the real value for players like you, or of players like you, is you're demonstrating what can be done with it. Because you've described some amazing experiences. You played for GB, you played in a successful team in the States for years, but you've just described a pre-season friendly against Stuttgart as being the best level of volleyball you've ever played in. And so, is it feasible for Volleyball England to have an England junior through to senior player development program that actually focuses not on an England team necessarily, but on helping players become good enough to go pro? Arguably, that might be the best approach.
Yeah, I mean, me and my dad always had this discussion of what can be done in England to be better. And one of the things we have is saying, does anybody actually know who I am in England and what I'm doing? And probably the question is no, Newcastle staffs do, but nobody else does. So I don't know, maybe people need role models to see what there is to achieve and let it be known you can be still playing volleyball as a career. Like, I do this to make money at the end of the day, and I love it. So it's not really a job. It's just my passion that I get paid for.
Well, it's fantastic that you're able to do it and do it so well. And in terms of you being a role model, next time you're back, I'll happily get you in the gym. I don't know if your dad said, I'm actually coaching some girls this year, which is challenging my coaching skills in whole.
Yes, it's very different.
Completely different. And one thing I've enjoyed in the last few summers when you've come home, coming to train with the guys, and it's a real reminder of 2 things for me, really. The first is the quality of player that you are and the speed that you play at, because very few of us can cope when you're putting the ball particularly to 4. It's not okay, Meg. It's too hard. But the second also is then the different style of play between top level men's volleyball and top level women's volleyball, and the different tactics that you would use as a setter to make the most of your attacking options.
Yeah, I mean, but I think the men's game, it's getting faster like the women's game now. But yeah, I think the women's game is ridiculously fast. And I think volleyball is continuing to change all the time. And that's one of the best things about the sport. Like you can see something and you'd be like, wow, I want to do that. So you try it at the next practice and it might not go right, but the idea is there. And yeah, that's probably one of the reasons I love volleyball, is because anything can happen basically.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk again about setting in another conversation. But for now, I think we've probably covered everything I possibly thought of to try and ask you about your volleyball career, Meg. So thanks very much for your time. And we hope to make sure that you are a really big role model for players because, well, for one, you deserve it, but also young players coming through benefit enormously from hearing more about your story.
Yeah, thank you.